All right, so this is section 3.2. This is actually just the first part of section 3.2. We are cutting this into two different parts because there's a little bit more that we have to go through in a little bit. The big part today, or the big idea today, is we have to come up with these ideas or these theorems. Now remember, theorems are things that are true that we can use in proofs. Every single one of these things that you see up here should be something that you put on your proof reasons sheet. Every single one of those things should be something that you put on your proof reasons sheet. Okay, so a big thing that you have to know is up at the top, this says parallel lines and transversals. So this is all about when lines are parallel and we have a transversal. So if you remember, I said that we could mark parallel by putting a little arrow on something. All of these have arrows on them, which means that these two lines are all parallel to each other. So these theorems and postulates only work when the lines are parallel. Yesterday, none of the lines were parallel, which means that none of these theorems would be true. They are only true when the lines are parallel. So first off, big thing here, you need to know that they're parallel. Every single one of these is going to start out the same way. If two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, every single one of these is going to mean the same thing. Now parallel, we denote it like this. You write two parallel lines in there, and that shows you that the two lines are parallel. All right. So that just means that two lines are parallel to each other. This says if two parallel lines are cut by a transversal. That's exactly what you see here. Two parallel lines and then a transversal here. Two parallel lines and then a transversal here. Two parallel lines, transversal. Okay. So the corresponding angle postulate says if two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then the pairs of corresponding angles are congruent to each other. Now, if you don't remember what congruent means, that means that they're the same. So remember, corresponding means angles in the same spot. So that means like this angle right here and this angle right here are congruent to each other. And it means like this angle right here and this angle right here are congruent to each other. So those angles are the same. Okay. It also means if you want to look at it in every single spot, this angle here and this angle here are congruent. And it also means the very last one down here, that angle and that angle are also congruent. So those angles are all congruent. If they're in the same spot, they are congruent to each other. Okay? The alternate interior angles theorem. Alternate means opposite sides. Interior means inside. So like this angle right here and this angle right here, those are alternate interior angles. So if two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then the pairs of alternate interior angles are congruent to each other. So alternate interior angles. That would mean that also, I'm not going to draw all the lines like I did on this one because I think that gets really confusing, but it also means that this angle here and this angle here are going to be congruent to each other. Okay? Alternate exterior angles, those are ones that are on opposite sides of the line and they're on the outside. So like this angle up here and this angle down here. So it says that if two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then the pairs of alternate exterior angles are congruent. So again, same thing happens with the other side. This angle, come on, this angle and this angle would also be congruent to each other. Okay, so these are all the ones that mean congruent. They're the same. If you look at the picture, you can tell by the picture they look like they're alike, right? Like this angle looks like it's the same as this angle. This angle looks like it's the same as this angle. If they look like they're the same and the lines are parallel, chances are they're the same. Okay? So if the lines are parallel and they look like they're the same, then they probably are. I'm going to rewrite this one so it looks a little bit cleaner. But we're saying that this line or this angle and this angle would be the same. We're saying that this angle and this angle would be the same. And we are saying that these two angles down here would all be the same. So all of the ones that have the same colored dots are the same as each other. Now we get into ones that are a little bit trickier. Consecutive means same side. So consecutive interior means they get smushed when we push the two lines together. So we're talking about this angle right here and this angle right here. Now, just out of curiosity, do those two angles look like they're the same? Someone say yes or no. Do they look like they're the same?
No.
They do not, because they're not. So if they don't look the same, then they are not the same. So if two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then the pairs of consecutive, oh boy, that was good handwriting. The pairs of consecutive, interior angles are supplementary, which means these two angles add up to 180 degrees. Those two angles will add up to 180 degrees. Also, these two angles would add up to 180 degrees. Okay, and now on the last one, you can probably guess what's going to happen. This angle right here and this angle right here, those are consecutive exterior. Those are also going to add up to 180. So now this is saying the consecutive exterior angles are going to add, are supplementary. They are supplementary. That also means that these two angles over on this side, here and here, are supplementary. That means they add up to 180 degrees. All right. Any questions on these theorems or what you guys can see right here? Okay, so let's go back to Google Classroom. Go ahead.
So for the second one, that would mean that all those would, equal up to give me a second. So that would mean that, the second one would be for interior. Excuse me. The second one would be for interior, but okay. And then
all right. So if we go back to the worksheet on Google Classroom, what you're going to see with this is there's just a whole bunch of things now where we're asking you about relationships. I am going to go through several of these with you, but not all of them. Okay. So I'm going to go through several of these things with you and talk about them with you, but I'm not going to go through all of them because I want you to attempt them yourself. Okay. So what that means is I want to go through just a couple of these and talk about them and talk about the classifications and whatever we have. So first thing that it wants us to do is it wants us to identify what type of angle these are. Are they a linear pair? Are they vertical? Are they supplementary? Are they alternate interior? Are they alternate exterior? What are they? That's what we need to do first. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at angle 4 and angle 8. So obviously with angle 4, I'm looking right here, and angle 8, I'm looking right here. So what you should be able to do at this point is you should be able to just look at this and see what type of angle they are. I see that 4 and 8 are on the same side of the transversal. So that means they're consecutive, or they could be consecutive. But when I take my hands and I smash my hands together, you can see that angle 4 and angle 8 are not on the inside or outside. They are one is on the inside, one is on the outside. They are actually both in the bottom right quadrant, which means that these would be corresponding. So these angles would be corresponding, and that means up at the top of our sheet, it says that corresponding angles are congruent to each other, so these are congruent. Okay, so that's how we're doing this worksheet. So that's what you're doing here. The second part, angle 1 and angle 2, this angle here and this angle here. I could cross off every other thing that doesn't have anything to do with this. And I can obviously see that angle 1 and angle 2 are next to each other, which means that they are a linear pair. And if they are a linear pair to each other, that means that they add up to 180, so they are supplementary. Okay, so if you see what I'm doing, I'm just flying through these by labeling what they are. And then once I label what they are, then I just know the relationship because either the top of my worksheet tells me that, or I have to figure it out a different way. Okay, so like let's look at angle 12 and let's look at angle 15 and angle 12. So down here, number 9. If I look at 15 and 12, down here and here, 15 and 12 are both on the same side of the transversal. So they're both on the bottom of the transversal. So they're on the same side, which means they could be consecutive. If I take my hands and I clap my hands together, notice how my hands are both going to touch 15 and 12, which means they are on the inside. So they are consecutive. Why does this mouse not work? I think it's
consecutive interior.
They are consecutive interior, yep. I think this is just I think it's the whiteboard program because I don't have this issue at school. So those are consecutive interior, and if you look at the top of your page, you see that consecutive interior angles are supplementary. So consecutive interior are supplementary. All right. So I'm going to leave the rest of these ones up to you guys because I want you to try them and figure them out. Okay. So I want you to try them and figure them out. You can also try the rest of these, but these are ones that we're going to be kind of talking about and going through a little bit more tomorrow. But if you feel like you have a really good understanding of what's going on, I want you to actually try this stuff. Okay. So I want you to finish this table for sure. This absolutely, without a doubt, needs to be completed tonight. Okay. This stuff here, numbers 13 all the way through 28, you should be able to kind of fight your way through and think about. So you should be able to think about this tomorrow, okay? So I want you to try this whole worksheet. If you don't get the whole worksheet done, that's fine. But this part right here, all of this stuff right in here, that is stuff that I want you to for sure do. I did 3 of them for you, and there are 12 total, okay? So I want you to try those, and I want you to try and figure them out.